Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Iona Athletics podcast, your source for the latest news surrounding the Iona Gaels. I'm your host, Mike Phillips. Happy New Year, Gael Nation. We have a lot to discuss this week on the podcast. I'll be joined in just a bit by Iona's Assistant Athletic Director of Communications, John Stanko. We will recap the fall season of Iona Athletics and preview the spring season for the Gaels. We'll touch on the winter as well. There's some stuff going on with the Gaels as well. Stay tuned to the end of the show for this week's upcoming schedule. We have some more games in action, some more teams back in action as well. But first, our recap of the past 2 weeks in Iona Athletics. The big news coming over the holiday break was that men's basketball coach Tim Kloos, who has not coached this season while dealing with a health issue, released a statement prior to Friday's game against St. Peter's. The statement reads, "Dear Gael Nation, as we begin MAC regular season play this weekend, I'd like to provide you with an update on my health situation. First, I'd like to say how grateful my family and I are for the outpouring support from everyone, from coworkers and colleagues to fans, friends, opponents, and officials. It's been truly amazing, and I'd like to thank you all for your notes of encouragement. Also, a thank you to the administration at Iona, our board of trustees, especially President Carey and Matt Glavaski, for their accommodations and support throughout this whole process. I am proud of my staff of Iona, led by Coach Arnold, for their hard work and diligence through a challenging non-conference schedule. I have the utmost confidence in Trey, Jeff, Ricky, John, Taylor, and Ethan as we begin to lead our student athletes in the quest for a fifth straight MAC championship in March. I am in constant contact with Coach Arnold, the staff, and student athletes to offer any and all insight I can while watching from home. Our success over the last decade has always been a team effort and never could have happened without the presence of great coaches and players. Our program remains in great hands as we all fight through this adversity. That said, I am working hard to be back this season, but at this time do not have a definitive timetable. My health situation is complicated, but I assure you, not life-threatening. I am confident I'll be back on the sidelines as soon as circumstances allow. Thank you again for all your support, and go Gaels." That was the statement from Gael coach Tim Kloos. That is great to hear. On behalf of everyone here at Iona, we wish the best to Coach Kloos and hope all goes well in his recovery. That being said, let's get on to the games. We'll go to Sunday, December 29th. Men's basketball wrapped up the non-conference schedule with a loss at Colorado, 99-54. E.J. Crawford led the Gaels with 14 points in the defeat. On Thursday, January 2nd, the new year begins with a victory for Iona women's basketball. They kick off their MAC schedule with a 75-71 road win at Quinnipiac, knocking off the defending MAC conference champions. The victory snapped a 52-game MAC winning streak for Quinnipiac. Deja Williams led the Gaels with 20 points and 5 rebounds, while Cheyenne Moy chipped in 18 off the bench. Juana Camillion also had 13 points, team-high 7 assists, as the Gaels got contributions from a lot of players in this win. Friday, January 3rd, we go to men's basketball back at the Heinz Athletic Center for the first time since November, but lose at the buzzer to St. Peter's, 75-74. E.J. Crawford led Iona with 24 points in the defeat, while Isaiah Ross came off the bench to score 5 3-pointers on 11 attempts. Mo Tiem also got the start and did well in the game, putting up 13 points, leading the Gaels in rebounding with 9. Let's go ahead to Saturday, January 4th. Women's basketball back at the Heinz Athletic Center, but lost to Ryder, 81-37. Bright spot for the Gaels, Paula Weeks, coming and gets her one of a few starts this year. Stats a new career high with 13 points. So good performance by Paula Weeks there. We'll go into Sunday, January 5th. Men's basketball on the road at Monmouth, a rematch of the 2019 MAC championship game. Unfortunately for the Gaels, the Hawks got some revenge, beat the Gaels 73-61. Isaiah Ross led the Gaels with 17 points. E.J. Crawford, Tawan Agee each scored in double figures in the defeat. And that will do it for this week's recap of Iona Athletics. Up next, our interview with John Stanko right after this.
Bravo!
All right, we are back here on the Iona Athletics podcast. Happy New Year, Gael Nation, and we are going to get ready for the new 2020 half of the school year. Joining me in the studio today to recap the fall sports season, preview spring sports, is the executive producer of this podcast and the and one of the voices of Coach's Corner, John Stanko from the Athletics Department. John, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Mike. How about yourself?
Doing very good, and I'm glad we got the back half pickup for the podcast.
Yes, you got renewed for a second half of the season, so you're doing a fine job.
Yeah, we did get renewed. We are going to recap what happened the first half of the year. So before we dive into specific sports, tell me how Iona's doing in the MAC Commissioners Cup.
Well, Iona's doing very well in the MAC Commissioners Cup. Thankfully, we had a very, very fruitful fall season with 3 conference championships. And for those who don't know, the MAC Pepsi Zero Commissioners Cup is kind of an encapsulation of every team's success in sports in championship season. And they're awarded points based off how well they finished during the season. And obviously, with Iona, with winning 3 fall championships, they've done very well for themselves. We expected to win cross country, and luckily our teams exceeded expectations again, performing outstandingly. But also men's soccer won their first ever MAC title. So currently Iona is in second place overall in the MAC Commissioners Cup standings, and the Iona men's programs are in first place by quite a wide margin.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the fall a little bit. Let's start with the golf team. What are some highlights from the golf? Because they're one of the few that plays both fall and spring.
They do. So their championship season is in the spring, but still one of the highlights of their entire 2019-20 season is going to be winning the 2019 Iona UCD Challengers Cup. It was the second time in a row that they've won it over in Irish soil, so they recaptured the cup after losing it last year. And frankly, the whole entire team played very well, and it was a very convincing win for Iona against the University of College Dublin. So that was definitely the highlight for them during their fall season.
Let's go to one of the teams that didn't have a superstar year, but that was kind of expected coming off a high of a MAC championship last year. Let's talk the volleyball team.
The volleyball team, man, I love this team. They're a ton of fun, and under first-year head coach Esai Velez Perez, he knew he had a bit of rebuilding to do, losing 3 staunch players from last year's all-championship MAC championship team, but they still had some really fantastic moments. We can't forget, the Iona volleyball team is the first Iona team to win a competitive game in the new Heinz Center. They won that game back in late October against Siena, so they literally are in the Iona history books forever. Yeah. And I think can't go without saying the offseason for them was strange, frankly. They're practicing in Mulcahy Gymnasium, which is dark and dank and not a lot of lighting in there, not your typical practice area for the Iona volleyball team in the offseason. They're practicing at Monroe College while the new gym is getting done as well. So it was a very back-and-forth offseason training for them before the season started, but they really rounded to form near the end of the year, and Esai Velez Perez has a fantastic group that he's going to build upon.
Yeah, I also want to give a shout-out to Jess Palucci, who was on this podcast back episode 4, finishes her career, outstanding end to the career.
Yeah, she's ranked second all-time in Iona history in digs. That's really the staunch record that she's going to hold, and she's an absolutely phenomenal person, also a huge member of SAC as well. On and off the court, she's just a fantastic individual. She's going to have a ton of success after she graduates.
Yes, also want to give some love to Taylor Cole from being named co-side all-district first team. Again, great academic performance as well as athletic for Taylor Cole.
Taylor Cole is legitimately one of the smartest people I've ever talked to at Iona College for a student athlete. Everything she says blows me out of the water. And obviously, with great genes from her dad, Rick Cole, former AD here, there's a ton of smarts in that family. And Taylor Cole, still another year here at Iona, and I expect big things from her on the court next year when she may take over the main libero spot, or she's going to have a lot more presence on the defensive end.
She will. And let's go to a program that took a gigantic leap forward from last year to this year, the women's soccer team. And last year was not great. Big leap forward under first-year coach Todd Plord.
Todd Plord, I mean, the dude loves to speak his mind, and he spoke results out throughout the entire season this year for the women's soccer team. They got 7 wins. They got 4 MAC wins. They matched the decade best wins total, which has happened only twice other this decade. And frankly, the 7 wins for Iona this year is 1 less than they had total over their last 3 seasons combined. So it's just a huge turnaround. I think you got to look at senior Amber Crispin up front, Mike. You saw her play throughout the year. She was a dynamic goal scorer. And then there's also a young freshman by the name of Samantha Hogan, who was named to the MAC All-Rookie team, who had a couple bright spots in her rookie campaign. So a lot of things to look forward to for the women's soccer team. And major props to Todd Plord for bringing this team up.
Once again, Todd Plord also a guest on this podcast, another athletics podcast bump.
Absolutely. I mean, we should talk about it. They tied for the 6th spot in the MAC standings after being picked preseason 10, and they, frankly, if they just didn't lose a tiebreaker to Niagara, they would have been in the MAC postseason, which would have been a remarkable accomplishment. Still an unbelievable year with what they accomplished, surpassing all expectations, but really, really fine job by Todd Plord and that team.
Fine job by that team, and let's start going to the champions. Let's start with cross country. I mean, I know the resume speaks for itself, but again, great accomplishments out of cross country.
I mean, it does. It speaks for itself. 29 straight for the men, MAC championships. I think they'll admit to being a little bit disappointed in the NCAA regional where they placed third. They didn't earn an automatic bid to the NCAA championship, Mike, but they got the at-large bid. Then they performed excellently in Terre Haute, Indiana. They placed 12th in the nation at the national championship. They were the top finishing Northeast team there at the year's culminating event. John Millar was named All-American for his honors, placing in the top 40. And Ihab El-Sandali, one spot away from being All-American, placed 41st. But Director Joe Piente, his entire staff, this team is they're built on winning. It's what they do. They're a fantastic culture. They're a winning culture. And, I mean, they dominated once again.
As we like to say in this podcast, they were born to run.
They were born to run, absolutely. And, I mean, talking about born to run, the women's team winning their 4th straight title, right? 14th out of the past 15 years, another dynasty for them. Egle Morinete made history this year, Mike. The first female student athlete in MAC history to win the MAC championship 3 straight years. She won her freshman, sophomore, and this her junior year. She has a chance to win it 4 times, pull off the sweep for the MAC championship next year. She could pull her own Ricky McGill in cross country, winning it all 4 years.
I was about to say the Ricky McGill Award there.
Yeah,
4 straight MAC titles.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's the anchor for this team. She was an individual choice, individual at-large bid to the NCAA championship, and she earned All-American status once again for the 2nd straight year. Egle Morinete, she's the anchor for that women's team, and guess what? They're going to be going for 5 in a row next year, and they're probably going to get it.
Yes, absolutely. There's going to be a lot of expectations again for them, and also big expectations for, I think, the program, besides the women's soccer team, that's the biggest leap forward in 2019. The team that I feel like that I sort of grew attached to the most was the men's soccer team.
I mean, the men's soccer team is hard not to grow attached to them, right?
Yeah.
They had that catchphrase "Vamos," which really took over in the second half of the season and kind of was their fans' rallying cry throughout the postseason. And Mike, you were there for the postseason run. You were there for every game.
Yeah,
and
I called the Ryder game.
Yeah, you got to see. They went through literally the toughest path to get to the MAC championship. And then to come from behind 2-0 in the MAC championship game the way they did on away turf in Jersey City, New Jersey against St. Peter's. Unbelievable run for this men's soccer team.
Yeah, we had Josh Plimpton in here a couple weeks ago, the MAC tournament outstanding player. I actually apologized to him in person. I'm sorry I doubted you guys. I told our social media intern here, Mary Conroy, on the side after they scored the second goal, I'm like, I don't think this looks very good. And then, of course, they make us all look like me look an idiot and just score 3 unanswered to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, they showed a ton of resiliency. And I think major props has to be put on head coach James Hamilton. He has his idea of soccer and the way he likes to play it. And the way he allowed the team to buy into what he wanted, but also let them show their personality is a very delicate balance. Yep. And I think he does a really, really good job at doing that. And that helps when you have a senior captain like Malcolm Moreno, who caps off his year with a MAC championship, first ever in program history. He was named MAC Defensive Player of the Year as well as MAC All-First Team. So the Malcolm Moreno, what a way to cap off a year. He's another person like Jess Palucci, who I think after graduation is going to find success in whatever he does. And for the fall championships to culminate with this for Iona in the first ever men's soccer championship, what a wonderful story.
All right, let's go. Let's trade this a little bit. Before we get to the spring stuff, the gym is open finally.
Yeah.
After a long construction period, that obviously you said set the volleyball schedule off a little bit. The gym opened on homecoming day, so how exciting is it for this athletics program to have the gym open now?
It finally happened, Mike. I mean, we saw the construction throughout all the summer into the fall. We're like, is it going to get done in time? And what was remarkable was before that first volleyball game, which was in October, like, there's no idea. We didn't know if the gym would be done. There were still construction vehicles in it hours before the match happened. Yeah. But in a matter of half hour, an hour, the gym was empty, the seats were out, and we were ready to play a volleyball game. It wasn't 100% open at that moment for the first ever game in the new Heinz Center, but now we've come the months across. By 2020, by January, when you're listening to this, it's going to be ready to go, full swing, with everything, all the bells and whistles really working. Major props to the entire facility staff on Iona for building this and organizing everything, for our Director of Athletics, Matt Kowalski, for really steamrolling this project, making sure it happens, getting the fundraising and talking to everybody, loosening all the wheels to make sure everyone bought in. There's so many moving parts, I can't possibly understand all of it or explain all of it, but the main thing is for Iona fans, it finally happened. It's 100% operational. The Iona Gaels have a new Death Star, if you will, that they'll be playing all their home games in. They're super excited for it.
They are super excited. Let's get to now the winter sports a little bit. The ones that have started already. They've already begun their seasons, but we'll catch up a little bit. Let's catch up with, obviously, the headliner, men's basketball.
Yeah, men's basketball, I think everyone knows, a limited non-conference schedule, not a ton of games, but it leads to a lot of practice time for Iona. I think the one thing we can tell here and early on the non-conference is that Tawan Agee, the Iona postman, is going to be in for a fantastic year. He's really cemented himself as the leader of this team vocally. He wants to win. I mean, we see him screaming all the time. He's super, super competitive. And I think that's really instilling that same energy in all of his teammates. He was named the Mac A-Sun MVP when the Gaels swept that tournament down in Disney, down in Florida. So I think the biggest thing from the beginning is that the Iona superstars are playing really well, and Tawan Agee is leading that pack.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be fun to see how they do and they drive for 5, see if they get the job done, get the 5th one in a row. Let's go to the women's basketball team. They got off to a hot start. They had the comeback win against Winthrop, the opening game. Not as good since then, unfortunately.
No, unfortunately not. But again, this is a team that's trying to find its groove. I think we saw at the end of last season when they really found their spark in the last 5-6 games of the year, and they were able to pull off that upset in the 2019 MAC championship. They're hoping that they're going to reach that pinnacle moment come the 2020 MAC championship. I think this is all grooming up for conference play. Iona did not have an easy non-conference road. They played Seton Hall at home, and Seton Hall gave UConn a fantastic game down in Jersey when they played them. They're down by single digits in the third quarter against UConn. So Iona welcomes in stiff competition, and I think Coach Chambers knows this is going to really build the team for when they have to go into MAC play. And they're going to need to win some games. They're going to need to kind of build upon what they had last year. But I think we're seeing Cheyenne Moy become more of a presence offensively, which is really good. We know Juana Camilleon's a fantastic playmaker. And if Morgan Raiku can shoot the ball as well as she has in the non-conference, she's been the most steady presence for Iona on the offensive end. We're going to see some wins in conference play, and Iona will be there.
Okay, let's go to indoor track and field.
Indoor track and field. The men's team was voted 3rd in the MAC preseason's poll, and the women's team was voted 5th. The biggest thing I got to say here is that these teams are just models of consistency. They may not win the championship every year, but the men's team hasn't finished less than 4th since 2001. So they're going to be in that top half of the MAC championship. And in terms of like individuals, it's tough to stay with this team because every year there's kind of a newcomer who really performs well at the MAC championship when maybe you aren't expecting it, but the coaches are, and they kind of come out of nowhere and they're like, oh, this guy's a distance runner is unbelievable, or oh, this girl won MAC Rookie of the Meet. Okay, she's here to stay for the maroon and gold. So I think that's what they're looking for with indoor track and field. It's all building up to that championship season once again, like cross country.
Yes, like cross country. Hopefully we talk to them soon enough on this podcast. They are overdue to come back.
They are overdue to come back, and you love talking to them. A bunch of personalities.
A lot of great personalities. Let's go to swimming.
Swimming, I think what the big thing with swimming is the women's team is performing exceptionally well. They're ranked 2nd into the MAC at the time of this recording in terms of average score amongst MAC teams, doing really well behind only Fairfield. So the women's team is performing exceptionally well, especially in dual meets. And I think the men's team is very young, and they're looking for some young up-and-comers to really kind of build toward February and that Valentine's Day weekend when they have that MAC championship every year in Buffalo. Coach Nick Cavatero does a great job in the offseason, kind of getting the team together in the months of December and January when school is off, but the training is still really rigid for Iona. And I think that's going to pay huge dividends come dual meets late January, early February.
Absolutely. That sounds like it'll be a fun time for them. Let's go further along here. Let's go into the spring. I know we got a ways to go before some of these teams start playing, but
I'm not clairvoyant, people, let me tell you, I promise you.
Yeah, let's tease a little bit. Let's start with the baseball team.
So I kind of want to combine baseball and softball.
Sure,
if you don't
go for
mind
it.
my pulling an audible because I think these two teams are built really, really similar. They have fantastic starting pitching, and they're going to maybe need to work on the hitting a little bit, but it's going to be their pitching and defense that's going to lead them to success. For the baseball team, under Paul Panic, you got Steven Hansen, Mario Ferrioli, and Hunter Sibley coming back. Hansen was all MAC last year. Sibley was MAC all-rookie. And Ferrioli, who threw a no-hitter for Iona 2 years ago, is coming back from injury. So that's 3 really good starters for Iona right there on the baseball side. For softball, under Coach Jansen, you got Kara Zazzaro, who was MAC all-rookie last year, all-MAC caliber. You got Marnie Skinner, who's all-MAC caliber as well. Then you got the return of Alana Evans, who was a MAC pitcher of the year 2 years ago. Last year she was hurt, couldn't pitch, but she's coming back from injury. So they got 3 studs in their rotation as well. So both the baseball and the softball team, they're really built around that starting staff and that defense behind them. And I think we're going to have really, really exciting games come in New Rochelle come the spring season.
All right, let's go back to golf because golf, you mentioned them before. They had a solid fall season there at the UCD Cup win, and What do you expect what's the plan out of them for the spring season?
I think the plan for them is to be themselves, be their kooky, really exciting and flamboyant selves. They're a ball of energy, and Coach Burks let them do that because come MAC championship, they're all loosey-goosey. They're all ready to go, and they have that swagger of fun around them. So I think the whole entire spring season is getting that swagger, getting that confidence, knowing that come late April, they're going for that three-peat. They want that third straight MAC title, that third straight ring. And major props to senior Oshin Devereaux, who's putting together the best year of his career thus far with his efforts in the fall. If he can carry that into the spring, Iona is very dangerous.
They are very dangerous. Let's go to women's water polo, the other water polo side.
Women's water polo, again, this is a team that makes the postseason all the time. They made the postseason in the MAC for over a decade straight. They're always there in the mix. So Coach BK, I think he has a chance to make some history seemingly every year in women's water polo with what he does with that program, leading it for so long and with all that success. So they have some offensive holes that they'll need to fill this year with some big weapons leaving, but they're going to be right there in the postseason mix again.
All right, last but not least, lacrosse new head coach Lauren Conley. I spoke to her on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Feel like she'll bring some new energy to the program. I'm interested to see what happens with lacrosse this year.
Yeah, I think lacrosse they're gonna be different because Michelle Mason's no longer the head coach. Lauren Kahn takes over. Just a different personality, different coaching style, and it's gonna be a new look maroon and gold, new look Gaels. So they do return their top three scorers from last year on Leah Marshall, Emma Rapone, and Maddie Kochenek. So they're gonna have some offensive weapons that they can play around with. I'm just very curious to see what they'll look like. Michelle Mason led this program from nothing, and she really brought it to some playoff level. And now can Lauren Kahn take it to the next level and bring some success? We're hoping so.
Yes, we are hoping so. And I know this is a very dense download of information for Iona Athletics fans. I mean, you got a solid almost 20 minutes just information right here on the sports programs.
Well, I hope people enjoyed it. But listen, things are looking up right now for Gael Nation. A lot of exciting things to look forward to.
A lot of exciting things to look forward to. John, thanks for taking the time to come by the studio today. I really appreciate it.
Always happy to, Mike. Great job.
All right, and there you have it. That was this week's interview with John Stanko of the Athletics Department with your fall sports wrap-up and spring sports preview here on Iona's Athletics Podcast. For the full interview with John Stanko, be sure to check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/ICGales.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you.
All right, we are back. It's time to look ahead to the week in Iona Athletics. Not a ton going on. Most of the programs are not very active, but we do have some stuff to look forward to. Let's go to Friday, January 10th. The track and field program will be at the Robert Elkin Invitational in New York City. Again, Robert Elkin Invitational in NYC for the track and field team. Men's basketball hits the road. They will be taking on Ryder in another MAC conference matchup. Should be a good showdown there in Lawrenceville. Let's go to Saturday, January 11th. The swimming team we haven't heard from in a while. They are back in action. They host Adelphi here at the Heinz Athletic Center. While women's basketball is on the road, they will be at Monmouth in another MAC matchup. Finally, Sunday, January 12th, men's basketball hosting Niagara at 1 p.m. at the Heinz Athletic Center. For full information, everything you could possibly want to know about Iona Athletics, everything you want to know, including game times, broadcast schedules, all that good stuff, check out our website, www.icgales.com. You can also follow us on social media. Just search for our handle at @ICGales across all major social media platforms. Stay tuned for a brand new episode of the Iona Athletics Podcast next week. Until then, keep fighting the good fight, Gael Nation.
Fighting the good fight.